So, there are, as you know, 6 ability scores in the game. So, there is Strength, Dex, Constitution. So these kind of make up your physical ability scores. And then for the mental ability scores, you have Intelligence, you have Wisdom, and you have Charisma. So this kind of makes up a very consistent, like, these are what these 3 things do. So Strength kind of applies to, so in addition to all the attacks, Strength also applies to athletics checks. It applies to carrying capacity. Dexterity applies to stealth. It applies to initiative. It applies to armor class. Dexterity does a lot of things. Intelligence. It applies to a bunch of skill saving throws. It applies to a bunch of class options. It applies to... Actually, that's not even the way I want to look at it. The way I want to look at it is that a strong character can be seen as like that buff, brawny guy. You can do a lot of things of just throwing your weight around. It actually adds to some role-playing elements. Dexterity, the ability to constantly jump and hide, to constantly be scoundrelly, to do things under the table. That's a roleplay element. Intelligence, thinking through a plan, having the ability to think through a plan, understanding the area you're in when something strange happens. That's roleplay elements. What's the roleplay element of Constitution? I walk forward, I'm not scared I get hit. I don't vomit and die because I'm weak. That's the roleplay element of having high Constitution. Meanwhile, isn't that the roleplay element of Strength? You're strong and you can throw your weight around? This is the problem. And, like, also, to extend off this, there's no skill-based saving throw for Constitution. There's no... Yeah, like, there's no skill-based saving throw for Constitution. There's no skill checks. There's no... Athletics is thoroughly strength-based. There's 5 different options for Intelligence and Wisdom. There's 0 for Constitution. Constitution is not equal. Constitution is health and mechanics. And because of that, it's obviously very important, but Constitution has no bearing on flavor. I've seen plenty of characters who will roleplay weak, like, defensive, weak hiding characters with a +2 Constitution. Because they picked that +2 Constitution so that just mechanically they didn't want to die. It's too mechanical of an effect. So, like I already talked about, wanting to add honor to the system, to add more, all that, you know, if your system needs it, you can actually add it to the system. That was done up here. So now, what I want to do is, since this has no bearing on the system, Constitution, if it wasn't for your health, if it wasn't for concentration saves, like most people would dump it, I want to see if we're adding honor, or if we're doing something like that. Hell, if we just want 5 things, let's work on removing Constitution. I think Constitution is the most unnecessary ability score in the game. It is a carryover to be a mechanical ability score in a game of roleplay. You can be strong, you can be dexterous. How do you be durable other than just rolling dice? So, let's talk. So with that, I want to work on removing Constitution. So what con does, so that we can tear it apart and put it somewhere else. So the first is its HP. Obviously, when you're rolling dice, when you're deciding how much health you have, it's decided by Constitution. So you want that Constitution to be high for that. But maybe we can put that in another ability score. So my obvious idea is you put in Strength. This has consequences because then Strength is now... Strength become... So you're going to... Actually, I'm just going to finish this off and then we'll talk about the consequences. But yeah, you're going to see Strength come up a lot. So HP could go into Strength. Saves. For the most part, I'm going to put Strength with a question mark because, generally speaking, it goes into Strength, but there are a few exceptions I'm going to make. So, I'm actually going to list out each of the saving throws it affects. So, it does cold damage, it does poison effects. I'm spelling this wrong, I'm certain of it. Don't judge me, I probably spelled that wrong. It does diseases. It does necrotic decay, because there's like 2 different types of necrotic damage types, and one uses wisdom saves, the other uses constitution saves, and there's like a beam attack that I think uses dexterity. But generally, if it's decay based, it uses your constitution. It does insta drops, which is like, for example, the Banshee Shriek, which I'm going to just use that as a description. And it does concentration. So, yeah, with cold, easily becomes strength. Note that strength is usually a weak saving throw, so there is space for strength to be taking over a bunch of these. Poison and disease could actually be replaced if we really need to. But, like, a lot of these, like, strength makes the most sense off of the main bases. Especially if we make your HP being strength, because then strength kind of becomes your durability, which makes your sense to throw your way around. You're kind of strong. Concentration, I think, is the exception. Concentration, I think, could actually be intelligence or wisdom. I think my idea is I would put in intelligence to make intelligence a more viable, more important saving throw. With that, I'll get to it in the end because I'm having trouble phrasing it right now. But yeah, here's all the different saves that could have. And then what else does Constitution do? Like, there's HP, there's saving throws, and that's kind of it. As I said, this is all mechanics. We haven't gotten any skills. And for class, yeah, there's a few class features. I'm going to bring up the Barbarian as the example. And so with that, if we can just peel these apart and put them elsewhere, we can kind of solve this issue. Now you're going to notice, if we just pull it all into strength, we have the issue that strength becomes overpowered. Like, and I'll go into exactly detailing how strength becomes overpowered, but if all of it goes there, then yeah, we have... Let me just write that out first. But yeah, with that, so strength would be, it'd be damage. It would be AC for heavy armor. And it would be health. And it would be saves. Like, strength would be everything. It would still be athletics. It would still be... Basically, yeah, I'm okay. Like, I think a lot of classes that don't use heavy armor often have no place for strength. So this just gives them a place for strength because it takes the place of constitution. So I think that's going to be okay. Generally speaking, I think it's okay that it takes all these things. But if it takes all of them with no other consideration, we just destroy the game, kind of, because everything becomes strength. So here's how how do I balance it? So I do a few things. So first off, the AC effect only affects if you're heavy armor. So I subtract 1 AC to all heavy armors. This makes heavy armor, instead of an option being the best durability it is, hey, if you have proficiency with heavy armor, you can avoid dexterity. That's what it does. It doesn't just, it's not the be-all, end-all armor. The problem with full plate is equivalent to half plate. So if you have more armor proficiencies, you can go dex-based. Maybe you take medium armor master, and now you're the tankiest character. I appreciate that. I like that change. This change, if HP becomes strength, then that change becomes pretty important. So then another thing is with the Barbarian. So in case you're wondering with the Barbarian, if your damage, your health, like if everything goes into strength, then yeah, so Barbarian's already going to be a strong class. Talking about Barbarian is kind of... few things, and it does them good. So, yeah, the Barbarian is kind of hard to talk about in the first place, because the best way to describe the Barbarian is it's the best fighter archetype. It doesn't do... It kind of does the same thing every time. It's always a strength-based melee fighter, but It is the best strength-based melee fighter, generally speaking. The main issue is that if everything that says Constitution becomes strength with the barbarian, it like that adds to your armor class. So then the whole issue of trying to reduce this, it basically becomes heavy armor again for the barbarian. It has less ability scores, which I will say, the fact that the barbarian has to deal with 3 ability scores is an issue I want to remove anyways. This is actually part of why I'm removing Constitution. I want to make sure barbarians, paladins, they had more room, more breathing room to choose other options. I'm actually going to do that. So, yeah, right at the top, I'll say removing con gives Barb or paladin more breathing room for ability scores. Because yeah, right now they both need 3, which every other needs at maximum 2. So definitely want to change that. That's one of the reasons I like removing Constitution as an idea. So Barbarian is already a strong class. The only thing I could do is replace Con with non-strength ability score. So I will note that, like, generally speaking, barbarians will still be strong. So even with this change, the fact that now your strength-based attacks are now... your strength-based attacks are also increasing your health by a ton is already going to make your character super destructive. You might not even need unarmored defense because you're just doing so much damage and have so much health, it doesn't matter. So that could actually be an option. Yeah, another idea. Alternative. Remove armor and unarmored. Like, honestly, just saying rely on max HP. Like, that's not even a bad idea, because if strength is going to be your damage output and your health and your AC and all of that stuff, it might just be fine to do that shift. You might just be able to you get hit a lot, but you have oodles of health. Like, just keep in mind, at 8th level, there's nothing stopping you from having a 20 strength when it is both your health and your damage outputs. So if we just remove the armor and stuff, like, you know, it's like, oh no, I took 20 damage. Well, the thing is, I have like 50 more health than the rest of the party, so alright. So I don't even think this alternative is a bad idea. But if we're replacing Con with 1 non-strength ability score, this at least makes it so that you can choose. My idea is you actually choose the non-strength ability score. So if you choose that, then you have your option of the third. If you want to be an honor-based barbarian, you can be an honor-based barbarian. And suddenly you key off anything that uses your constitution. You use your... That being said, that is a little weird using honor as a defensive option. But also one of the things I noted... So let's actually just use the idea if it replaces con with dex. Let's just look at... let's just look at that. Replace con with dex. So one of the first things that happens is AC equals dex score. And when I say dex score, I mean the score, not the modifier. Because your AC is now 10 plus dex with your unarmored defense. So if you have a 16 dexterity score, then you have a +3 to dexterity, which is 10 plus 3 plus 3, which, hey, is 16 again. So your AC equals your dexterity score if you do this. In addition, we, at 20th level, increase it to 24. That's pretty huge. Dex becomes potent with certain archetypes. Dex is... And, the more I think about this, I don't think this is going to overpower it. I think this is going to make Dex Barbarian make sense. Like, keep in mind, so here's what I mean. So the Dex Barbarian is always the idea of playing a Barbarian that is actually super defensive instead of offensive. This, like, this is already just make you defensive. It's, again, increasing your dex. If you're using a rapier instead of a greatsword with reckless attack and the plus barbarian damage dice, like, as long as the barbarian damage dice does not apply to dexterity, as long as reckless attack does not apply to dexterity, those two options are not good enough. Those two options are why I can't do a dex barbarian. But I just realized I'm a little close to the mic. I apologize if I broke some eardrums. But if suddenly AC equals dex score, so increasing your dexterity by 2 instead of increasing your AC by 1 increases it by 2 points, suddenly that's potent. Suddenly that is potent. And then you add in that there are some archetypes. Like, let's pull up a barbarian archetype that does that. Where's the back to top? Anyways, let's go to barbarian. And there has to be an... Let's look at the path. Let's see. I believe Storm Herald has it. So, Storm Herald, with a C, they have to make a dexterity saving throw, and the saving throw DC, where does it say it? It equals 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your constitution modifier. This would oh, sorry, I just realized I pulled this down, actually. So yeah, it equals, it's your, is it 10, the DC equals 10? Sorry. It's a saving throw of 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your constitution modifier. That would change to dexterity, which makes this actually, like, because this deals lightning damage, this kind of turns into, yeah, right here it deals lightning damage. This turns into your damage outputs for your dex barbarian. That turns into an option there. And like with wild magic, all of these wild surges, DC equals 8 plus your proficiency bonus plus your constitution modifier. There's a lot of wild surges that do a lot of cool effects. Suddenly, the wild magic sorcerer and the Storm Herald sea sorcerer are now dex-based barbarians. And I don't... Like, it's definitely powerful having those options, but like, barbarian, the issue with it isn't power, it's options. Okay, its issue is power as well, but options are really the biggest issue if you ask me. Like, too many barbarians are stuck in the same path because they're all just strength-based melee attackers. They don't really have many other options. Allows for more options. Alright. So then, yeah. So then also, this last thing, honestly, I think as long as we just make concentration be intelligence-based, this kind of makes intelligence viable, and strength has the place to deserve more saving throws. Strength really just works with pushback and stuff. Strength becoming the new constitution save, I think will be fine in your games. Someone could test it and tell me I'm wrong, but that's the thing. I'm just going to be blunt. I don't have... The people I play with will not... I don't play often enough or with complex enough games that I have the opportunity to test it. I honestly would love if someone would test it and tell me the results. If this was good, if this was bad, I'd love to hear it. But also, so you might have noticed, so today, like just now, I did Constitution. I was talking about removing Constitution. And previously, I talked about adding Honor. So why do I want to... So let's just get into the last conclusion. Why I want to remove Con and add Honor. So usually, so let's just bring up this little thing. So usually we have Strength, Dex, and Con as our physical ability scores, and we have Intelligence, Wisdom, and Charisma as our mental ability scores. So this is physical, and this is mental. But this is a role-playing game. That doesn't really define characters well. If we shift this to the idea I had, so then we have Strength and Dex as our physical. We would have Intelligence and Wisdom as our mental. And then we would have a third option of Charisma and Honor as our conversational, as our social ability scores. It's how you interact with people. Can you pull off? Can you deceive them? Can you trick? Do you have a strong personality, or are you just respected? Can you be respected? Do people trust you? I think I like this dynamic better. The idea that you have social ability scores in a game that involves social arguments, I like that a lot better. So, yeah, that's kind of what I want to do. I kind of have this theme. I want to replace Constitution with Honor. But it's not a straightforward maneuver. You need to first do all these little changes. You need to also do some shifts for making connected classes Paladin and Warlock. Like, it does have a lot of changes. There's a lot of work, but when you're done with that work, you're back to having 6 ability scores, so you don't have to change much. Saving throws are a bit more distributed, so you can actually do a theme where each class, you just choose the 2 most reasonable ability scores. Like, obviously, Dex and Strength are going to be very powerful, but I don't think it's going to break things. Anyways, I really like that. Actually, you know what, now that I think about it, Dex plus Strength will probably still break things, because Dexterity did not lose anything, and Strength got a lot. So, gotta keep that in mind. But other than that, like, that's the one issue I'm seeing right now. I really like this idea of a system. So, in case you're wondering, if you ever hear me pushing for this again, that's because I'm really interested in this. In addition, if anyone could try this out in their tables, I would love to hear the results. Even if it's bad, let me know why it was bad, what went wrong. My main issue is, if I bring it to my current group, it'd be too complicated for them. I usually end up playing with people that are newer to the game, so there's only so much I can do. Whatever it is, thank you so much for watching. I hope you have a